Hey, brothers and sisters, Brother Matt, back with another message from the Lord. This message is from January 26th, 2024. Started with a dream, much like the message from a few days ago. And then there's some words from the Lord and a vision also, some vision kind of elements here. So I'll share all that with you in a minute. If you're new to this channel, check out the other videos that I posted. You can see the other things that the Lord's given me to share. I just give you what he gave me as best I can without adding a lot of explanation or additional interpretation to it. If you have prayer requests, put them in the comment section so I can pray for you and so other people on the channel here can pray for you too. There's a Substack where I publish these words, you know, the written version of everything. You can go and look at that, and you can read the transcription and see the footnotes with the Bible cross references and stuff that are there. All that stuff's available to you there. I'm just going to go ahead and get into it, guys. I'm not feeling great, so let me just do my best to get through it. So here we go, January 26, 2024. Like I said, it started with a dream, and in the dream, my wife and I were staying with someone, a friend, and my wife and the woman that we were staying with, they were in the kitchen, like working on dinner. And I decided, I felt really anxious and I really needed to go out. And I wanted to go to, actually I wanted to go, in my mind, what I was imagining is I wanted to go to a comic book store. I've collected comics since I was a kid. Don't really follow comics super closely now, so it's kind of interesting, but it's very like on brand for me, I guess, because growing up, anytime we would ever go anywhere new, I always looked to see if there was a comic book store there, and that was something I always liked to do. So in this dream, we're at this friend's house. We're not at home. We're staying with somebody, and then it's like I really want to get out, and I found out you wanted to go to this comic book store that was in a mall or something. So I told him I was going out. I didn't want to tell him where I was going. And when I was trying to go out, I couldn't find my socks or my shoes. And so I had to wear somebody else's socks and somebody else's shoes to go out, which I thought was kind of an interesting thing. Mine weren't there. And I guess, that just emphasized that I wasn't at my own house. So I'm wearing somebody else's socks and somebody else's shoes. And I leave and I go to this mall, like a shopping mall, and I walk inside, and this is like one of those indoor malls, like, used to be more popular in the past, had a very tall ceiling. And when I walk in, on the right-hand side, there's a bank of elevators, and there's a little door next to the elevators. And for whatever reason, I go through this door. And so then I'm in like the mechanical side of the elevator, where I can see the elevator shaft and I can see the actual elevator machines and all their machinery and stuff there. And there's a man who's on top of the ceiling or the roof of one of the elevators. And he tells me to come up there. And so I climb up on top of this elevator and I'm in the elevator shaft with this man. And he's trying to show me that in this shaft, you can hear voices. And there are voices, like loud voices speaking out. They're all saying different things. I mean, they really felt like there were dozens of voices. But it's not like we were just hearing the voices of people in the elevator. It's like we were hearing like disembodied voices, or the way I understood it in the dream is I felt almost like it's like spirit voices. It reminded me of, I've seen sometimes, this isn't something I really watch, but I've seen and heard about it, is that like on the ghost hunter type shows, they have a machine where they pick up frequencies and they sometimes hear, claim that they hear voices through that, on like those paranormal type shows. And so that's kind of what it was like. It was like I was hearing these voices coming through in this shaft, in this elevator shaft. But the voices were clear. I couldn't hear anything specific that the voices said, but I could hear the voices. They were all around. And the man that I was up there with kept saying, I don't know what this is, but I know that it's real. And he almost sort of, his attitude was like this was a miraculous thing, like a supernatural, certainly, but also kind of a miraculous thing. In the dream, as this was happening and the man is telling me this, I was not interested at all in what this man was saying. And I saw what was going on as just a distraction. And so I wanted to ignore it. And so I climbed down off of the elevators, and I left the man, and I went out the door, and I came back into the mall because my rationale in the dream was like I didn't want any distractions. I just wanted to go do what I wanted to do. I just wanted to go to the shop and look for comic books and whatever. And so I didn't care about this other thing that was going on. I tried to ignore it. So I walk into the mall and I turn the corner, and when I turn the corner, that opens up into like this large hallway. Like lots of malls, at least in the US, it's like a big long hallway with shops on either side. And so that's what it was like. I turned the corner into this big opening in the mall, and there I saw dozens of people who were like levitating in the air, floating in the air, basically. I mean, I guess they weren't floating because they were in place, but they were levitated up in the air, and there were men and there were women and there were children, and there were dozens of them. It was like I turned the corner and I walked up on this bizarre supernatural scene. And the people in the air seemed kind of dark, kind of shadowy. But I knew that they were just like regular people who were being pulled into this experience. And then suddenly I started to find myself being lifted up into the air. And I was lifted up several feet off the ground. All of the people around me were lifted up maybe six feet, or sometimes maybe 8 feet off the ground, I guess is what it seemed like. And as I was being lifted off the ground, I felt immediately that this was not okay, that this was not a good thing, that this was not, it's not like the rapture, and was not from the Lord. That was how I felt inside. And so immediately I started to pray in Jesus' name against this thing that was happening to me where I was being lifted up. And as I started to pray in Jesus' name, slowly I started to be kind of lowered back down to the ground. Everybody in the mall and everybody who was experiencing this thing saw it as like a miracle. But for me, I knew that it was not right. I knew that it was something false. I didn't want to be a part of it. And so as I prayed against it, I was lowered down to the ground. And then I just immediately went back to what I was there to do, which was to go to the shop. And so I went into the shop, and as soon as I get in there, the shop owner's there, and I guess I'm kind of interacting with him, and I'm looking for whatever I came there for, but I had the feeling of like, I don't even remember what I came in here for. I don't even know why I came here. This was a total waste of time. Could not recall why I was there, what I was looking for. And so then I felt like this pressure, well, I've got to, buy something. And so I'm looking around, but the shop owner wants to engage with me about what's going on. And as he's talking to me, I realize this is not a person that's saved. This is not a person that knows the Lord. This is not someone with spiritual eyes to see. And so he starts to try to describe what he thinks is happening. And he kind of is describing it like, well, maybe, the mall was buried on like a burial ground or some, like that's kind of his idea, is that it's ghosts related or something like that. And so even though I felt kind of agitated and anxious, and it's like I did not want to engage with the guy, I felt like, well, I need to somehow try to share with him. And so I start kind of trying to make a bridge to the gospel with him. And, what I actually said in the dream was I started talking to him about something called soul ties, which is, something that I heard somebody talk about years and years ago. I haven't really even thought about since then. But that's like related to, how sin can maybe bind you to a person. It's not even something I like really have strong feelings about, but that's, for whatever reason, that's what I was sharing to the guy about, thinking that perhaps that would open, an opportunity maybe to share with him. But the whole time, it didn't really open up in any kind of conversation. I didn't want to engage with what was going on. I just wanted to ignore this whole, weird miracle, weird situation, and just kind of get on with my own thing. So then I woke up, and when I woke up from the dream, the Spirit of the Lord was immediately on me, and then the Lord began to speak, and this is what the Lord said. He who sits in the shadow of the Most High and takes shelter under his wing shall not be shaken on the day of great shaking. For he will find his rest in the house of the Lord. I, the Lord, the Holy One, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, he who was from the beginning, he who is Alpha and Omega, through whom all things are made, sustainer of all things, the author and perfecter, the Lord of hosts, the captain of the armies of heaven, he who is coming again to judge the living and the dead, he who suffered on the cross for your sin, he who was buried in a tomb, he who was raised on the third day, he who ascended into heaven in the sight of many, he who is coming soon to judge the living and the dead, he who gathers his remnant, the conquering king, the faithful one, the shepherd of the sheep, he who is called the door, the way, the truth, the life, he who is the light unto men, the only way by which men are saved, he who is coming soon in power and great majesty. It is I who speaks to you. Therefore listen to me and heed my words. So then I saw a vision. And in the vision, I saw a person dressed in fine clothing, a man dressed almost like in a tuxedo type, like a suit. And he was walking in a line. It seemed like maybe the line was illuminated somehow, but it was darkness all around him. And when he got to the end of the line, there was a door that opened in the darkness. But when the door opened, it was still dark where the door was. Like I could just barely kind of make out the outline and like a deeper shadow. And when that door opened, he was met by someone dressed in black with a white mask over its face. And the man and this thing that met him were standing in this doorway. And the person in the white mask put like shackles on the man's wrist, chains, and began to lead him away. And the man resisted. He didn't want to go where this thing was trying to take him. But, in my mind, I thought he's being taken away to perdition. Now, these things that I saw, this creature that was guiding him, only the face was visible. And it looked like a mask, like a white mask. But the face was like kind of like what you would typically associate with like an alien, like the that very classic image of what aliens look like that we see in all kinds of media and stuff. That was kind of what the shape of the mask was and sort of what the face looked like. And then the other thing that I recall is that it was wearing like this black covering, but I could tell that the shape underneath it was not like a human shape. It was kind of misshapen, like it had a long neck and a wide body. It didn't seem like it was in proper human proportion. Now, this reminds me of a dream that I had back in December with the seven evil spirit things. It was very similar, except for that in this being that was taking the man off was dressed in black, and before those seven evil bride shapes were all dressed in white. So this creature drags this man off, takes this man off through this doorway. So then I see, it's like the scene shifted, and then I see these two doors that have opened in front of me and great darkness beyond. And I'm being pulled towards these two doors, thrust towards them. Like I can feel myself kind of rushing towards them. I can't resist it. I'm being pulled and pulled and pulled towards it. And, immediately I thought, I'm going to see perdition. I'm going to see what's happening here. And I didn't want to see it. And so I like just actively resisted, really out of fear, I would say, because I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to know what was on the other side of that door. I didn't want to see into the pit. And so what happened was that instead I saw a dry land, like a parched, this is how I described it when I wrote it down, but a parched land and something like a mountain. And the mountain was made up of these tiny stones, almost like grains of sand, but thicker than grains of sand. And it was very bright, so bright, in fact, that it was almost like a sunny day when it's snowed outside and the sun is reflecting off the snow. And so it's so bright, it's almost impossible to see. It's almost like washed out in the light. And there was like a high peak where this mountain was. And I see hands trying to climb up this mountain. And the hands keep grasping at these stones. And as they grasp at them, the stones come loose and the hands slip and they can't move forward very easily or very quickly, or like as they move forward, they begin to slide down. And gosh, it's gotten so hot in here. The hands are all beaten up, bloody. The fingers are bloody and broken from trying to climb up this mountain. So the people just keep slipping, and I see their fingers, their bloody fingers as they're trying to climb. And so then I said, there is a chasm, a gulf that lies between. It cannot be crossed. It is the abode of those who are left to the outer darkness. So then I saw another scene. And in this scene, it was a valley. I've seen this valley before, I think. And the valley had grass on the bottom and small stones and huge dark mountains all around, like on either side. And there was rich green grass, on the floor of the valley. And there was this fog, this thick fog that was set over the valley. And I could see, this is what I said, I see the souls of men wandering about like a sheep without a shepherd. They have lost their way. And then the Lord began to speak again. And this is what the Lord says: I am he who goes after the lost sheep. I am he who leaves the 99. Listen to me, O you children of the Lord, for the hour is late, and the time is coming soon. Therefore, be my fellow workers, and like a shepherd, help me to bring in the sheep. I will raise up a harvest among you. For the time of the harvest of the earth has begun, and the sower and the reaper shall rejoice together. I, the Lord, am doing this thing. You who are looking for me, come and join me where I am at work, and you shall see me. You who long for me, you who would hasten the day of my coming, come and join my work. Put your hand to the plow and live as stewards of my mysteries. If you abide in me and my word abides in you, then you shall bear much fruit. Do not turn to the right or to the left, but stay on the path I have set before you, that you might finish the work I have apportioned unto you. So that is all the Lord said. That's kind of the end of the vision thing that he gave me. That's what he gave me. So yeah, brothers and sisters, I just pray for you, pray for all of us that we can be faithful until the day that we can be about the Lord's work and that we can go after his lost sheep. It's funny because after the Lord said this, it reminded me of something from when I lived overseas. I worked with a guy and very, very committed to evangelism, and he would challenge us to go and share the gospel at least 5 times a week, and that gave us the intentionality of looking for opportunities to share. I think sometimes that we don't share because we don't have the intentionality to share, the intention to share. We go out and we're doing whatever we're doing, just like me in the dream. Don't want to, I'm on my own mission. I'm not really looking to be interrupted. But I think a lot of times evangelism is like that too, that we don't have the intention of looking for those opportunities. And because we're not actively seeking and asking for those opportunities to share, we don't often find them because we're not looking for them. So having heard all of this from the Lord and everything this morning, it just made me really think about how I need to be more committed to evangelism in my own personal life here where I live. And I say that to you guys as a challenge also. Let's be intentional. Let's pray and ask the Lord to give opportunities for us to share the gospel. Let's be mindful and let's be looking. And I believe the Lord does want us to co-labor with him, and we are stewards of his mysteries. So let's be faithful to what he's given us. Brothers and sisters, I love y'all. I'm grateful for y'all. Again, put prayer requests in the comment section, and I'll be with you again next time. God bless.